Hey everyone, wanted to talk about 3D printing again this week. Um, Now that I've got my Ender, I've put through 4 full uh, spools of filament through it. Um, Filament is an interesting thing. It does not come in lengths. So if you think about, you want to buy an electric cord, you're going down to buy electrical wire for your house, right? You're going to buy 50 feet, 100 feet. Filament doesn't come that way. It comes in weight, and it comes in kilograms. So I put 4 kilos of filament through the printer so far. I'm working on number 5. I have more filament coming because I'm running out. But one thing I wanted to point out is that there are a lot of things that you can print, right? I've printed my honeycomb wall pieces so that I can use those to organize. And that is become the primary use right now is I'm doing those. I've got the Gridfinity stuff that I'm organizing my paints. I'm organizing the stuff that I want to use for my crafts. I did get my boxes made for the actuators, which was my original goal, was to print out the actuators. I had to use Tinkercad for that. I couldn't quite get the walls to come out the way I wanted to in Blender. I needed to extrude them. It was becoming a little bit more effort than I wanted to expend. Tinkercad wasn't a lot easier than Blender was. In Tinkercad, what I needed to do was take 3 different objects and put them together. So I needed to have the cube form, which I put in the measurements for. Then I needed to put another cube form inside of it, but flip it from being a solid to being a hole, so that now I had an open top box. So I needed to extend it past the top. And then I needed to put the hole in the bottom of it, which was a ring piece that I had to insert into it, make sure it's in the bottom, make sure it extends through the bottom, etc. Blender was a little bit easier to put the cube together and just say, take this edge off. Even doing the extrusions was a little bit easier, but when you're doing extrusions on that, it's mirroring the size, and I needed to adjust the bottoms to make sure that it took care of the adjusted size. I would have had to adjust that bottom face, and it was just easier to throw it into Tinkercad to get the walls the thickness that I was looking for, which was more math than it was adjusting things using my mouse. So it made it a little easier from that perspective. But the other thing I wanted to talk about this week is you don't need to print everything, right? Once you start printing things, it can be very easy to then see everything is printable. It's kind of like that if all you got's a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Ooh, I've got a printer. I can print all kinds of things. I've printed some figurines. I'm trying to redo my 3D chess set, so I'll be looking at getting all that stuff printed up. It's been a learning experience figuring out where to put things and how they have to be put on the bed so that I have less supports, those kinds of things that I'm learning along the way. I've made some scrapers. Now, I like to bake, and whatever I bake usually stays in the baking dish until it's done. And that means that there's typically some stuff left in the baking dish. There are bed scrapers, and you can print them. They're not very big. They print fairly quickly. But I'm finding that those work very well at getting this extra residue off of the baking dishes. It's become very helpful for that. So that's something I couldn't find necessarily to buy, but I could print. These honeycomb walls, I like the way they look. I like the whole honeycomb shape and how versatile they are. And that's not something I could typically go buy someplace. Gridfinity, same thing there. I have a unique situation, well, not unique for photographers most likely, where I have a series of external USB hard drives. And they were just kind of sitting on my desktop. But I found a cabinet, and I use the term loosely. It's basically a cube shape, open at the top, open in the front, that allows you to set another cube inside the top, right? So you can stack them. It has a drawer, which is just a piece that slides in and out, which just had a cross piece on it, and that's it. They included, to make it a Gridfinity thing, a 4x4 grid that you could put in there. Well, that's great. It just sits there. Not wonderful if you want something that's more stable. So by taking the drawer in the grid, putting it into Blender, hooking those two pieces together, I was able to make a drawer that has the grid built into it. Then I went and used a online tool that allows you to make Gridfinity objects, did a 2x4 and made two trays, right? So it's just a 2x4 base with just a little piece over the top and a little lip, and put two of those into each drawer, and then put my USB drives in there, one per, and then made a second shelf, and then I put a top on it. So the entire thing is open, so I don't have to worry about the drives getting hot or being subjected to any kind of thermal distortions sitting in the drawers. It's now stacked. It takes up less space because the overall thing is just a little bit larger than having the two drives together. It's not as big as if I put 3 drives side by side. So it's just a little bigger than the 2, and I've got 6 drives in there. I've got 2 per shelf, and then I made a top where I glued a grid to a piece that I already had, locked that into the top, and now everything is locked into place. It's not going anywhere. I don't have to worry about it shifting, and it takes up less space. That's something I couldn't find anywhere, and it needed to be built. So there are certain things that you're going to find out there that you just can't find what you're looking for. And you can design something with Tinkercad or this Gridfinity tool that they've got on there that creates a template and allows you to create holes and add things to it to get things to fit the shape of the tool, for example, that you want to put in the tray. So those kinds of things you just can't find. And that's what 3D printing is great for. But there's a lot of things out there that you could just go buy. I have a shovel hook. I probably could find one. I printed one because I'm going to use it for something a little different, and I hadn't quite seen something that looked like this, and I'm going to use it to hang up the backpacks that I've got my camera equipment in. All right, I can take those. They've got the loop at the top, and I can move those off of just sitting around the floor up into a more organized setup. And again, this is something I've never seen a hook like this. It's more flat. It has 2 screws in it. It's going to be perfect for hanging these things up. And it's something to print. But, as I said earlier, keep in mind that you don't need to print everything. There are things you could just go buy at the store. You don't need to print it. You don't need to use your electricity for it. You don't need to go grab more filament and use more filament for this stuff. You can just go buy it. So save your 3D printing for what you're doing there. This is the same thing as if you were buying photo equipment or a new tool. how often am I going to use it? Is it important for me to purchase this thing? Same thing here. Is it important for me to print this thing, or can I just go buy it and use it? Now, there's a lot of photographic stuff that we can do with these things that you just can't get anywhere else. I took a photographic image and put it on the bed, but what I did was I told it for the dark stuff to be closer, which prints it thicker. It doesn't look like anything until you put a light behind it. And then you can see the image, which to me is just really cool. Not something you can just go buy at the store. All right, this is something that does have to be printed. So think about this from that perspective. Is it something that would help you or look really nice that you can print yourself? Or is this just something you should go buy and not worry about printing it? So that's what I got for you guys this week, and I will talk to you all next week.